Big deal.
And we're ready whenever you are, Mayor.
No, it is.
Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's city council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera in the chambers, city council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raised hand feature. Notice a picture of the hand in the right upper right-hand corner. When we reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click that button to be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Here.
Counselor Dilaba,
Here.
Counselor Fisher,
Here.
Counselor Kennedy,
Here.
Counselor Powers,
Here.
Counselor Reish,
Here.
Counselor Scamperly,
Here.
quorum present.
We do not have any presentations tonight. We do not have any proclamations this evening. We have two public hearings tonight. The first one is regarding a proposed ordinance amending Chapter 149 of the City of Augsburg Municipal Code entitled Parks. It is Bill number 2, and I will open that to public hearing now. If anyone attending in person would like to speak, please come down to the podium. You have 5 minutes. Anyone attending remotely, please use the raise hand feature. You have 5 minutes.
I do not see any hands raised.
I will declare this hearing closed. The second public hearing is regarding an amendment to the administrative regulations. It is Bill number 3. I will open that public hearing now. If you're attending in person, please come down to the podium. You have 5 minutes. Anyone remotely, please use the raise hand feature, and you have 5 minutes.
I do not see any hands raised.
I declare this public hearing closed. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Steve LaRose. I live at 410 Paddock Street in Augsburg. On November 10th, 2022, I submitted a request for information to the interim city manager, city controller, city clerk, and the city council. In the request, I was looking for information that I felt would be basic in the 2023 budget process. I asked for the following 6 items. Number 1, a copy of the City of Augsburg 12/31/21 audit. Number 2, a breakdown of the fund balance at 12/31/21 for the general water and sewer funds. Number 3, appropriated and unappropriated balances of said funds at 12/31/21. Number 4, appropriated funds, if any, listed by year appropriated and project. Number 5, dates of city council budget workshops that I assumed at the time were open to the public. And number 6, calculation of projected fund balance at 12/31/22 for the general water and sewer funds. I received notification from the city clerk, who has a heck of a job, 1 day later on November 11th, that my FOIL request, due to the high volume of requests being processed, would be sent to me by December 12th, 2022. I indicated on November 11th to the clerk and to all others that I was available to help, not hinder, the budget process. I also volunteered to meet with the city controller or the interim city manager at their convenience. On December 12th, 2022, I received notification that the city did not anticipate being able to respond to my request until January 12th, 2023. The response also said that if the city was able to respond earlier they certainly would. As of today, I have not received nor heard anything. There are a few days left until January 12th. For the record, I was able to go to the city's website, which does a nice job, and find out the date for budget workshops and the calculation of projected fund balance. Information requests 1 through 4 remain outstanding. The reason I'm here tonight is not to question any of the figures supplied to council in preparation and adoption of the 2023 budget. For the record, I have never met nor had any business with Gray and Gray and Associates. I'm glad that they've been able to provide their services. The city is very lucky to have them. I believe that the reason I've not received any information is that the audit for the year 2021 is not complete. If I'm wrong, please correct me at any time. The independent audit is not done for the benefit of the city council. The independent audit is done for the benefit of the citizens of Ogdensburg. Citizens, as I'm sure you're well aware, are inherently skeptical of city finances, how the money comes in and how the money goes out. City finances are not the property of city council. You are simply the caretakers of the people's money. I'm a registered conservative. I may be a little carefree with my own money, but not with the taxpayers' dollars. On the city's website, audits for the years 2009 to 2020 are listed. Since the year 2009, audits of city finances have been completed before the next budget has been passed. For example, the 2009 audit was completed on August 6, 2010, well before the 2011 budget needed to be passed. The 2020 audit was completed on September 10th, 2021, well before the 2022 budget needed to be passed. From 2009 to 2020, 3 audits were completed in August, 6 were completed in September, 2 in October, and 1 in November of the following year. As I said, the year 2020 audit was completed on September 10th, 2021. The 2021 audit is not completed, to my knowledge, as of today, January 9th, 2023. Members of City Council have asked management about the status of the 2021 audit on more than one occasion in the year 2022. According to the minutes from the city's own website, July 25th meeting, councilors asked when the audit was expected to be complete, and the answer was mid to late August of 2022. During the October 24th meeting, management said that the staff had documents to deliver to the auditor, but it was difficult with the shortage in staff. It was not the volume of the documents creating the delay, but rather the shortage in staff. Section C15 of the city charter indicates that city council shall provide for an independent annual audit of all city accounts and may provide for more frequent audits as it deems necessary. Section C56 of the charter indicates that there shall be an audit committee, which shall be constituted and empowered to internally oversee and direct the audit function, except as otherwise provided in the charter. The committee shall work closely with external auditors during the yearly audit and report back to City Council with pertinent information throughout the process. The independent auditor's report for management's responsibility in the process reads as follows from the completed 2020 audit by Pinto, Musinski, Hooper, and Van House. Management is responsible for the presentation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This includes the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. Ladies and gentlemen, the audit needs to be completed for 2021. I await the answers to my request, not quite as patiently now as I have been before. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Is there anyone remotely attending?
I would just ask it, Andrea and Angela explain, you provided, the council shares his concerns and has shared his concerns. So I just ask you to explain the status of the audit and why it's taken so long so that people understand that.
I'm not sure if that's correct, right, to do. I think staff should discuss that because
Well, so we did discuss at the last meeting, I did provide an update to council as to where we are with the audit. The audit is not complete. We have provided the documents as requested to our auditors. They were supposed to be here today working on it, but they were not due to family emergencies from their limited staff. That's about the extent of the update I can give you other than what I provided in the update to council. We have provided the documents to them and made ourselves and staff available to do the necessary field work, which is the work that the auditors have to come do here at City Hall of our files.
we all want it done. It's, there's definitely a workforce issue with every business. And I don't want to get into slinging mud.
And as far as the audit committee, it is myself, Counselor Reich and Counselor Fisher, correct? On the audit committee. Yep.
I think the major point Steve's making, well taken, is that we should see that audit before we even pass the budget.
I said that 100 times
I know.
and it's just been delayed and delayed and delayed. And I actually talked to the auditor and they claimed it was because the city didn't provide certain information. And I talked to Andrea for an update and it's kind of their issue. So that's where I stand as a member of the audit committee. I get different answers. So.
Questions?
And genuinely, that was my concern as well, as I had reached out to the independent auditor as well. And those are genuinely my concerns going forward, is there was different, and this is prior to, I want to say November even, I believe was when I spoke with the independent auditors, the firm, I should say, and ultimately gotten different answers from what we received from the previous city manager to the information that we recently received from our acting city manager or interim city manager.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, why don't you come back up? There's another 2 minutes later.
Go ahead.
For 9 years, I sat in those seats. There's no quicker way to lose the trust of the citizens than not being outright out front with the finances of the city. I'm not saying anybody's not doing anything. As I said in my statement, you're darn lucky to have who you've got working for you. Very lucky. It needs to be more of an emphasis. It needs to be more of a concern for the city council to get it done, to make it a priority. Thank you.
Anyone attending remotely?
I do not see any hands raised.
This brings us to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence?
We do not.
Next, we have our consent agenda. The claims is enumerated in general fund warrant number 1-2023 in the amount of $895,110.89. Library warrant number 1-2023 in the amount of $0. And capital fund warrant number 1-2023 in the amount of $1,108,608.52. And community development fund warrant number 1-2023 in the amount of $0. And community renewal fund warrant number 1-2023 in the amount of $0 as audited, be and same hereby are ordered paid. I so move.
I'll second it.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
We do not have any appointments tonight. And this brings us to items for council action. Our first item of business will be read by interim city manager Andrea Smith.
This is an ordinance to lease municipal property at 330 4th Street, the basement for satellite offices of U.S. Congressman Elise Stefanik.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
I think when the lease was presented at the last meeting, was there a blank for the cost or is there a cost?
The rent?
Yeah.
The monthly rent is $1,000.
What is that, a square foot, do you know?
I don't have it broken down by square foot. I do.
It is higher than we had rented it for, correct?
Yeah, it's really like market rate.
Okay.
I do have that broken down and I can put that in this week's update and send it out to council though.
Well, I for one am very glad to have her here. Shines a good light on our city. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by interim city manager Andrea Smith.
This is an ordinance to amend chapter 149 entitled Parks of the Code of the City of Ogdensburg. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Ogdensburg, New York as follows. Item 1, that chapter 149 entitled Parks, section 149-2 entitled Definitions, subsection entitled Greenbelt is hereby amended to eliminate Library Park.
I'll move that.
I'll second it. So what's the pros and cons of doing this? I mean, the park belongs to the library, right, corporation?
Yes, that's correct. So on November 28th, the City Council approved Bill number 113, which was an MOU between the city and the library. The MOU was provided to the city by the attorneys that represent the public library, and it was ultimately approved. It was accompanied by an email from those same attorneys on November 2nd, bringing to the attention of the city that should we agree with the MOU and go forward with approving it, that we would have to amend our definitions of Greenbelt Park and remove the language that also listed Library Park. And so we are doing such with this. The property is owned by the public library. It was deeded to the Ogdensburg Public Library, April 5th, 1895, by the Clark family.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
approved.
Our
I just want to make note, clerical issue here on the resolution. You've got multiple counselors on there in the order. You're missing Counselor Kennedy and I believe Counselor Reese. You
Understood,
got Counselor Fisher and I twice.
And Skelly twice.
Understood, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
dear.
you. Thank you.
We know what you meant, Kathy.
This is an ordinance amending Article 4 entitled Expenses, City-Owned Vehicles, Section 28 of the Administrative Regs titled Travel Expense Reimbursement of the Administrative Regulations of the City of Ogdensburg.
This is just a cleanup, right, of language to.
I'll move it. 1 second.
Yes, and it's to have the process flow accordance with what the federal per diem rates are, rather than have the city have to recalculate them and put them in the administrative regs every year.
Good, I'll second that.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development and Interim City Manager, Andrea Smith.
So resolution calling for public notice and public hearing on the city's proposed Restore New York 7 grant application and property assessment list for the strategic demolition, deconstruction, rehabilitation, and/or reconstruction of vacant, abandoned, condemned, and surplus properties within the city's brownfield opportunity area.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Interim City Manager, Andrea Smith.
This is a resolution authorizing the chief elected official, Mayor Skelly, to execute an intermunicipal agreement with St. Lawrence County for PSAP services, which is dispatch. Whereas since 1999, the state of New York has carried out directives of the Wireless Communications and Public Safety Act of 1999 through the designation of county government as the responsible 911 call operators. And whereas to fulfill the responsibilities of that designation, St. Lawrence County created the Office of Emergency Services, which oversees the operations of 911 Center for St. Lawrence County to act as the primary public safety answering point, PSAP. Now therefore be it resolved that Mayor Skelly, Ogdensburg's chief elected official, is authorized to execute the intermunicipal agreement attached here to setting forth the protocols under which St. Lawrence County PSAP will directly provide notice by radio of a public safety emergency to on-duty personnel of the city of Ogdensburg, for which the PSAP does not provide primary dispatch functions.
I'll move that.
Second.
There was a second by Counselor Powers in case no one heard it.
Andrea, do all of the communities in the county have the same agreement that they're asking us to do?
So we have been provided with two agreements that have been executed for the Canton and Norwood. It's my understanding that Potsdam was also presented with a similar resolution. They chose their dispatchers and their dispatch similar to what we had previous to today. But the same agreement was sent to multiple municipalities throughout the county.
Not the towns, so not in multiple meeting. So they've been providing all these services all along to Canton and Norwood and Norfolk. They're memorializing it, I think.
Correct.
And then it would probably sent to Messina and Governor, but not all the towns because they don't require them to have it. They don't require the state police to have it. They don't require emergency service departments to have it. And I asked whether or not this was like standard treatment for municipalities throughout the state by other counties. And I've only gotten one example. I've got some pretty serious concerns about it. It seems like it just continues to add to our costs, and it only handles safety, emergency, not other dispatching operations. I think they're trying to limit what they're doing. And I don't know. It seems to me like it's a double standard compared to how they handle other calls in Lisbon or Oswegatchie. And once again, we're treated differently. And I don't have enough information, and I'm not comfortable voting on this. So I'd make a motion to table it.
I'll second it.
Counselor Fisher seconded that, in case you didn't hear.
Do the staff think with time they could find more out, we could get a better idea before we move ahead?
So this has been something that the previous city manager was working on with the county. The correspondence I have from that is dating back to September. As council knows, we did submit a revised agreement and a letter stating that we didn't believe that we really needed a memorandum of agreement or an intermunicipal agreement. The county has taken the standpoint that they disagree with the perspective, if I'm understanding correctly, that other municipalities have been presented with the same agreement, and this clarifies what they will provide, what they do provide. It clarifies for liability purposes. It states that the city will hold the county harmless, the county will hold the city harmless, and that they will not provide these services if we don't have an executed agreement. That's been pretty clear in their communications that I have received dating back to September with the former city manager. They have made some minor changes to the agreement that was originally provided based on comments from our attorneys and questions from staff. I did provide council with the feedback we received from our attorneys, but it didn't come out to you till later this afternoon. But it is the recommendation. This isn't ideal. We don't take the perspective that it's necessary, but the county has been very clear that they want this agreement in place for them to provide these services. And right now, in the time period between December 31st and today, we have provided dispatch, if you will, at the police station using patrolmen on overtime just until council had the opportunity to entertain this IMA. And that really is not a sustainable model in terms of the cost that it is costing the city to provide overtime staffing and 24-hour coverage.
So is that more expensive than having 4 dispatchers?
The overtime?
Yeah.
Well, right now, so we're
mean-
looking for the county to do it from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's about $140,000 to $200,000 a year, depending on the pay rate. So break in the middle, 170,000, we'll say on average, if we were to continue on this route.
For paying the overtime,
To pay the overtime.
not to pay the county.
Correct.
Right.
So to pay an officer to sit that desk from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. for the rest of the year would be $170,000 in overtime.
Okay, right now, do you have 2 people on 207C that are on limited duty?
Yes, sir. And they're covering the dispatch desk during the day.
It isn't that the whole point of.
You can't break them up between the day shift and evening shift? If you have 2 of them?
If it's my understanding that the county can't do the daytime, correct, right now, until they expand their own facility, at least for like another year or so?
That is correct. The county is only offering the ability to work it from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Right.
With their current staffing and their current infrastructure that they have at this time.
We've been told that repeatedly.
For 3 years.
So we also eliminated the 4 dispatchers in the budget. What year was that we actually voted and to eliminate the dispatchers and based on the recommendation from the state to have them take that over, and they've had 2 years, 3 years. I mean,
3 years.
3 years? I mean, exactly how long do we have to wait for?
So we actually had a chiefs meeting today. I can give council an update. From what we're being told on the law enforcement end on this project, because we're not the only community that's kind of waiting on to see what's going to happen here, because we're all kind of interested in on this as a whole, because it's going to affect all the police departments. Some municipalities, without naming them, are more interested than others, of course, on joining the county on having them be in one centralized dispatch service. And we're being told from this point, from a year to 18 months out, of having completion of this multi-million-dollar project of a 98% radio reception across the county, added desks, law enforcement desks within the dispatch center, so they can take on more law enforcement calls, because there's more law enforcement calls than there is fire or EMS calls across the county at any given point. But again, then like any project, that's the timeline that we're given. So just like any construction project, that's just the guesstimates we're given. But that was the update as of this morning.
We've also sent people to the moon and they were able to broadcast back, and they did a lot quicker than we're doing it. And we built a wastewater treatment plant in less than 3 years. So I think with being able to use a radio, I think it could have been done.
Chief, what did you say the difference in cost was between the dispatchers in-house and the county cost for 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.?
We're paying $140,000 to $200,000 in overtime. So it's fair to say, break in the middle, we'll say 170 in overtime, which was not our budget. Our entire overtime budget is $260,000, so we cannot afford $170,000.
But there is no cost associated with executing this.
Correct.
This
There's
agreement.
no cost to this agreement.
No, I understand that. I was just curious as to the comparables, but obviously my concern is well, let me ask you this, Chief. Are your calls higher than they were in 2022 compared to 2021?
21 to 22. Our call volume's been the same for the last 3 to 4 years, steady between 9,700 to 10,000 calls.
And are all those emergencies, or are those
No, sir.
Those are administrative costs or calls, right? I mean, like, it could be, you're counting calls where someone wants to sell you a service or something?
No, I'm not talking phone calls. These are, when we say calls, they're calls of service that requires an officer to respond somewhere to do something. So,
And how many fall under this definition that's very limited in this agreement, where it's a public,
approximately 2,500.
2,500?
Yes.
Well, just from a budgetary perspective, why would you pay the overtime when the county will do it for free? And at least at the nighttime right now, while we use the officers that are on light duty during the day, it just makes sense to
I
move
thought they
forward
were
with
already
this.
handling the nighttime calls.
That way there, we're not paying the overtime. So,
Are they
the sooner
handling
we
are they
get this
handling the
agreement
night-
in place, the sooner we quit paying the overtime. So
Are they handling the nighttime calls now?
I'm sorry, is who handling the nighttime calls?
911.
So
They are not.
right now, we are still providing an officer 24/7, but we are covering essentially from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. with overtime. Because the county will not take on these calls without an executed IMA. We won't be doing that after today.
An executed IMA that can be terminated at any time, or the terms of it can be changed at any point in time.
As I've articulated many times to council, as recently as today, the staff, whether it's the police chief or myself or the attorneys representing the city, we don't feel as though this IMA is the best IMA that it could be for the city, or that we even need an IMA, but it is what the county is asking for. They have made some revisions that are to the benefit of the city. And this agreement is a far better option than to continue to pay overtime, which we didn't budget for. The only other option that the chief and I have talked about is starting tomorrow, we won't be providing overtime. And so from 11 to 7, there won't be anybody there.
So what about all the other calls?
So if you dial 911, if you actually dial 911 and you are having an emergency, the county will
True
dispatch.
emergency.
It has to be an actual true emergency where there's a life-threatening situation. So they're limiting what they're doing to you.
And how do you know that something that's small and that begins with doesn't escalate to be something big?
Exactly by this agreement, what they will and won't answer for dispatching.
Right, so if it is not an emergency that meets what they have defined as an emergency, then that gets
Then
transferred.
that will be handled by our dispatchers on overtime, is what you're telling me.
That's how it has been handled.
So we're not gonna have any dispatchers to answer any of the other 3/4 of the calls. Is that what you're telling me?
Without this agreement, that is correct.
So we won't have any dispatchers. So once we adopt this, you're saying you won't have any, you're
Not
not gonna
at
pay
11
any
o'clock at
overtime.
night.
From
There'll be-
11 to 7.
You won't be paying any overtime for anybody to answer the phone and do dispatching.
At 11 o'clock at night, that is correct.
What about all those other calls?
During the remainder of the day, we will still accept phone calls.
But
The officers that are on restricted duty are providing that service now.
911 between 11 and 7.
They'll give us full dispatch service with this signed agreement. So you call up, hey, I was at the 7-Eleven, I backed into a car, a little minor fender
That's not-
bender accident,
that's not what
they
this-
will dispatch that call.
That's not what this says.
Yes,
They
sir. it
will
does.
do
Yep.
that under this agreement, and
Yep.
that is articulated under section 3D.
Yep.
Specifically D1.
My neighbor's dog is barking all night long, they will dispatch us to that call. They will call in our DPW. Our sergeant calls up dispatch and says, hey, can you call the night shift beepers for DPW? The Twin Bridges are getting icy. They will make that phone call. They'll do our full service dispatch during those hours with this signed agreement.
But without it,
But
we
without
will have
it,
an answering machine
we'll
at
have
the
an
police
answering machine at
department
the
and we
police
will hope
department.
somebody checks it.
That's our alternative.
We have to, I mean,
Let's do it then.
I don't think this can sit idle.
No, let's move the resolution. I don't know why we're tabling it.
I don't
Quite
think it's
frankly.
ready. I have a lot of answers and I've made a motion to table it and second it. And I still have a
You
lot
have
of.
questions? You have concerns or questions, or do you have answers?
Well, Mike, the thing, we got the report and stuff at 4:11 today, and I'm sure some people didn't read it. And I don't know if everybody went over it by tooth and comb, but I suggest you do. What happens once we just sign this and then we're at the mercy of the other two shifts when the time comes? And what happens if they just put us on the back burner? And this, a year goes by and these guys come back on the road. They're not on their 207C anymore. And then all of a sudden we're getting stuck with the overtime and they just keep stalling.
I'm not following you. I'm not following you.
I asked for all the agreements and I've gotten 2. Okay. And it's just funny that Norwood's wasn't even signed by the chair at the time. And Canton's was signed on 9/22/22. We've been fighting this for 3 years, but we're from here to Canton, but yet we can't get the contracts that we hear that there's contracts everywhere. Everybody's involved. But since we started to ask for this back in 2020, now all of a sudden there's this intermunicipal agreement that's all of a sudden becomes signed with Canton on 9/22/22. And I've only seen one other one, Mike, and nobody can produce them.
I wouldn't necessarily say that they haven't responded since September or the date.
No, this is when it was signed by the Cantons.
I saw those signed agreements, and I saw that the chairman Sheridan didn't sign the one from Norwood.
Right. But where's the other ones?
I don't know. And at this point, I don't care. What I care about is providing services to the citizens of the city of Ogdensburg through our law enforcement. I
Well, the
don't,
best way to
I,
provide.
hang on, wait a minute now. Now,
Great decisions.
when the previous city managers forwarded this on, we did receive a response from Matt Denner, the county of emergency services, that
Yes, we
said that they weren't equipped to do this as of yet. And this
Right,
is an
and he also,
inter-municipal agreement that, quite frankly, if we don't move today, then we're going to be paying additional overtime, 11 to 7. And I don't know the contractual rights of the two individuals that are out currently on workers' comp or on leave, but ultimately they may have a bid shift and time. I'm not certain, and I'm not going to elaborate on that. But ultimately, from 11 to 7, if we don't provide a service to the citizens of Ogdensburg, and whether it be a dog barking or a significant life-threatening incident, then I think we're culpable.
well, you also had, as you mentioned, Mr. Denner. Mr. Denner was on television telling us, this being quoted as, we're going to pay for this service. No one else pays, Mike.
I never said that they weren't going to pay for the service.
No,
don't
I
know what
said,
it's gonna cost to us.
listen, I said that Denner said it on television. Clear your ears.
No, Bob, save your comments, man. You know, at the end of the day, it's providing service to the citizens of Ogdensburg. That's what it boils down to.
Right. Affordable services, Mike.
Yeah, no shit.
There you go.
Well, so
There you
this
go.
agreement does not have a cost associated with it. Again, this
Right.
is not, the city is not being charged by the county. I just feel like I need to be abundantly clear about that. But
Andrea,
without
one
this
quick-
IMA,
I'm sorry, Andrea. I didn't mean to cut you.
but without the IMA, they are unwilling to provide the service that we do need and have asked for. I have received two agreements. The two agreements I received, I did forward them on to council from Canton and Norwood, as we've discussed. There was a request for the feedback from our attorney. I did provide that to you. I realize you didn't get it with a lot of time to digest it. The questions didn't come in, with a lot of time to provide a response. So we have responded to the extent that we are able to, given the time constraints between getting the agenda out to you, getting your questions, and getting a response together. We certainly can keep working on this, although I cannot guarantee that there will be any substantial changes. I mean, I think we are continuing to work on this with the county. They are upgrading their entire system, as the chief mentioned. Their timeline on that really hasn't changed. It started out at 18 months. Maybe we're closer to a year. I'm not really here to criticize the county on that.
And our attorneys aren't recommending adoption of this, right?
They didn't
I believe, and the chief
I
can
read it.
comment on this as well. You have verbatim the email that was sent to us. They don't feel as though an IMA is necessary,
That's
but
my
at this
point.
point in time,
And I think
given the county's perspective,
I
they
think
do
we're all
think this
being
is.
naive, because I think it's just another example of the county forcing something on us. They've had plenty of time to do this. It's a double standard whereby, other communities aren't forced into doing this type of thing. And I can't vote for it.
So how are you going to pay for the overtime? That's what I want.
Well, we won't be having overtime. That's not in the budget. The conversation I've had with the chief, unless directed by council, that is not in the police department budget. So that will absolutely overrun their overtime model at this time. We agreed to pay for it to get us through the 9th so that the council would have all their options and service would not be interrupted. If the council chooses not to go forward with this, I'm telling you now that there will not be overtime provided. Again, unless council provides the directive to do that, because that was not budgeted for. So from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., there will not be someone serving in that capacity starting tomorrow, January 10th.
Good. I think the county should be providing the services, and they shouldn't be forcing an intermunicipal agreement on us. And I wish they would cooperate with communities better to
But we can't,
consolidate and provide these services, and they've been dragging their feet for 3 years. And I think they're being duped into an agreement, and that they aren't even taking over all 3 shifts. It's just an ongoing effort to.
Better than nothing.
So also, again, I mean, I don't know, for the benefit of the public or anybody that hasn't gone through the agreement, there is a difference between the primary public safety answering, which is the 911 calling, versus secondary. Our department has provided secondary dispatch services. That is what the county is essentially agreeing to assume. They have no obligation to provide secondary dispatch. That might be a clearer way of talking about it, but essentially from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., the county would agree to do secondary dispatch, which is for non-emergency, with the execution of this agreement. Without it, they will continue to provide dispatch for emergency situations, which they are obligated to do, and they have been doing since 1999. Should you dial 911? The real concern here is if someone doesn't dial 911 in an emergency, we will no longer have someone there to answer the phone. If this
Then
is,
they aren't dispatching directly to the cars the way it was set up.
They will for an emergency.
Oh, there
yes.
you go. So you're not saying what's true.
I am telling you the truth as it has been
That's
conveyed to me.
the whole point of the effort. And there is no reason for an agreement because they are responsible for 911. They collect all the revenue for 911. We've changed the whole system so that our patrol officers, so it's more efficient and it's more safe. So that if they handle the calls, they will bypass dispatching, which you're saying has overtime associated with it, and it would go directly to the cars.
So it won't go direct to the cars. So how it does work. So when they receive a 911 call over at the county and it's a police emergency, they will call the single point of contact to the municipality of its jurisdiction, whether it's Ogdensburg, Messina, Potsdam. They will call that police department and transfer that phone call. If it was a situation where no one answered, then the next step is via radio, and that's what they would do to us in this situation. But yes, ultimately it would be over radio. It wouldn't be on the Ogdensburg PD frequency. It would be over sheriff's frequency. So our folks would have to be monitoring that sheriff's frequency, which they were going to have to after tomorrow night because there'll be no one sitting on the Ogdensburg PD desk anyways.
That's right. That's the way it should be.
And there's more than just emergency calls. I mean, there's so many people that call the Ogdensburg Police Department.
So you're going to continue to have dispatching, continue to have overtime, but using it for a justification for us to adopt.
No, there's going to be no one that he's sitting there at 11 o'clock tomorrow night. There will be no one in the building at the Ogdensburg Police Department.
And if we adopt this, you're not going to take non-emergency calls.
I don't have staff for it.
It's not the budget.
I don't. We cut the staff. We can't do both. I don't have dispatchers. I'm down another police officer. We don't have staff to do both. We can't dispatch and patrol. That's what the council decided. We can't do both.
Right, and the point is to get the county to do it, and they've been not willing to do it. And I just don't think the agreement is necessary, and they should be willing to do it. I can't vote for it.
Why would the county?
You got to understand though, their only requirement for non-emergency calls is to notify the jurisdiction with the municipality with jurisdiction.
What do they do in Lisbon? What do they do in Morristown?
Okay, so they don't have police departments there, so that would be the sheriff's department. So they would notify the sheriff's department, who would be on duty.
That could be 30 miles, 40 miles away,
Right.
the closest.
The double standard.
Well, there's a double standard
But we
for
have
communities
municipal
that have
police
a police
department.
department.
Right, and
If we didn't, it'd be different, but we do.
I think we're headed that way. I've done my best to fund the department, and I think we're headed that way. You know.
So it does continue to be staff's recommendation to execute the IMA, to approve the resolution before you this evening. I do think it is in the best interest of the city at this time. It isn't our preference, but given our choices, it is the best option that was available to us at this time. And I think that if you do read the comments from the attorney, that you would also find the attorney feels the same way. It is not our option of preference, but it is the best option given our options.
Kathy, would you call the roll on the resolution to table?
So we have a motion to table by Counselor Reese, seconded by Counselor Fisher. Counselor Powers,
No.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
No.
Mayor Skelly,
No.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
No.
denied.
Kathy, would you call the roll on the resolution?
Counselor Reese,
No.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
No.
Counselor Fisher,
No.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development and Interim City Manager, Andrea Smith.
This is a resolution to approve the sale of surplus property following the January 6, 2023 surplus property auction. Whereas the city of Ogdensburg has acquired by default household items associated with in property in tax sale foreclosure proceedings. And whereas said parcels have been declared surplus by city council on December 12th, 2022. And whereas all property sold by the city of Ogdensburg is as is, and the city makes no warranty as to condition. And now therefore be it resolved that the city council approves the sale of surplus items to St. Lawrence Residential Services LLC for a sale price of $1,200, where the minimum bid was $550. Be it further resolved, said buyer is financially responsible for moving all surplus items on or before 4 p.m. on January 20th, 2023 from the premise of 708 Morris Street. And be it further resolved that the acquisition of surplus property shall be in coordination with the city's code enforcement office.
I'll move that.
Second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
approved.
And this brings us to old business. Does anyone have any business?
I just want to make a comment.
I had on my list was discussion of the audit, but I guess we already did that. So I'm good right now.
I just want to make a comment related to, it's not necessarily old business, but I appreciate Andrea putting out the weekly update and formulating that and getting that out to us, and many of the responsibilities that she has on every day for us. And I appreciate the update and having that information readily available to us and the public. So thank you for that.
I'd like to reiterate that. Thank you very much. It was a relief to actually see an update, and we haven't seen one in a couple of years. Thank
It was, and it was interesting reading about the waste receiving station and the details on it, because when that was presented for approval, it talked about like septic, I think. And then I read that there's a 19,000 gallon tank for whey that we built, which, wasn't disclosed to us. And another one, leachate, which we did talk about leachate. But my concern is that the biggest tank that we built, the 19,000 gallon one, I assume was built for one company and one company only at taxpayer expense, because there's only one whey producer that I know of. that's nearby. Um,
That is all part of the Hubleton project at Hubleton's expense.
It is. So they paid for a portion of that facility, not the big facility. I'm talking about the waste receiving station.
So I feel
Because
like
I never,
I printed my update and I left it on the copier. So sure. We do have different compartments that are designed to handle different types of waste, and waste that comes Way in particular, and Shane, I'm probably speaking, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Way can only come in and out of our facility at certain quantities at certain times without being detrimental. So it has a separate compartment to make sure that it is not detrimental to our other processes.
yeah, that's my concern. I don't think Hubleton paid for any of the waste receiving station. So if you could verify that for me, because I remember you guys talking us into building it. I forget the cost of it, but I don't remember any discussion of Hubleton. And it seems to benefit only one company, that's in the village of Hubleton. And it was never,
It's the three standard. That would be the largest because they can't dump it as quick as they can in the chamber center.
and my concern is as you've already stated, and I've stated in the past on multiple occasions, it can be detrimental to the facility, and it does have a very high biological oxygen demand, so it costs more to treat. So I don't know why we have one fee for 3 different products. And I mean, it's so detrimental that they have programs to spread it on farm fields so that it doesn't go to a waste treatment facility.
Well, it can be beneficial to the processes in place at the wastewater treatment facility. We just have to monitor the quantity that is being put into the system at any one time.
It costs more to treat and it's not beneficial. It's harmful to the processes. So you should look into it, and staff should review it, and there probably should be different rates for each material. And if it was built for one customer at city taxpayer expenses, and that customer happens to be in Hubleton, then they probably should have paid for it.
I don't know much about it because it was contract before we got into office. I think the contract is changed.
Right.
And so it way costs more.
We approved one fee, did we not? 10 cents a gallon?
We have, well, yeah, so we're talking about two different things, I think, unless I'm misinterpreting. So there's the cost to utilize the waste receiving station, and there is a per gallon fee that has been established by council as 10 cents a gallon. And that does apply to any waste that's being brought in accordance with your permit, obviously. So there's some things that we presumably wouldn't take, but if it's a permitted waste, it's 10 cents a gallon. I'm happy to look into whether or not we should adopt or look at recommending adoption of various fees. We can bring something back to you on that. I think what you're talking about, Mayor, is the actual cost to treat. So the waste that is coming from Hubleton, there is a formula that has been presented, and it is articulated in the preliminary engineering reports provided to the city for the village of Hubleton. But what that cost is, as I've stated in the past, has not yet been determined. The formula has been set out and agreed to. I think there's still some things that are in question. What constitutes some of those costs? What is and is not in some of those the cost to treat, but the actual dollar amount, if you will, has not yet been determined and will need to be determined in 2023, as we expect to start receiving waste in the fall from Hubleton once their line is completed.
And part of that analysis, and we have to adopt that at some point in time.
You will have to adopt the rate.
And
That's
part of
correct.
that analysis is including, how that cheese plant is pre-treating their waste, and also, to be treated as an industrial user with a different rate as per our present code.
They are also, so this facility is also considered a significant industrial user. We just actually authorized their permit today. So they have a rate just like other facilities in the city as a significant industrial user in accordance with our code.
We haven't adopted a rate yet.
For Hewelton?
Yeah.
For Hewelton, we have not adopted
The
a
cheese
dollar
plant.
rate. Yes. Well, they are part of the village of Hewelton. When you're talking about their waste coming in through their transmission line, they also have the ability to bring a truck to our waste receiving station as a customer. And they are also considered a significant industrial user and have a permit through our significant industrial user section of the code.
And is that a different fee?
I will send you their most recent permit. I'll send that to council. Confirm that for you.
This brings us to new business.
Mike, I got one. You got one more.
Counselor Fisher.
We've been almost 2 years now, at least 18 months. Councilor Reese put together a pretty good community development plan. We've been sitting on it now for a good 18 months. Do you think we could get that on the next agenda?
No, sir, I do not.
Is there some type of problem with it or something you need to do, or do we need to get somebody to come in and help, or what?
Well, the next agenda would be for January 23rd, and admittedly, I have not looked at that plan in several months. I'll have to go back and see where I last sent it to the former city manager, but I know there are at least 2 outstanding items, one of which is legal review and 2 is the environmental review. So I'll just have to follow back up on where those are and certainly provide council with an update. We can look at getting something back on your agendas in February, but I cannot commit to having that to you for January 23rd.
So we're looking at it another couple of months probably, or a year.
You said February, right?
I said I will look at bringing that back to you in February to let you know where we're at with that. I'll give it to you in an update where we're at, but I can't have that prepared for your next agenda.
Okay, well, can we do it in a month? We can do it in a month though?
The manager as well, and we've been paying you for the last 18 months. So I don't think
It is out of line, Jeff.
I don't think
It is out.
I agree on that one.
Very ignorant.
No, it's not.
She works hard. She works very hard.
It's not the point though. It's been going on for a long time and it's time to bring it to closure.
I will give you an update as to what I last gave the former city manager. I will give that to you this week and we can resume where we were on that. I have not worked on that in months. So I won't have anything for you for adoption on the 23rd. That would not be prudent, nor would it be in compliance with state regulations.
What state regulations would we not be compliant with?
Any community plan has to go through the state environmental review, which it has not done.
But it could have 18 months ago.
The planner works at the discretion of the city manager.
Okay. Well,
So
now we're good.
I have given documentation to the former city manager. I will pull that out and I will give it to you. I am now serving as 2 roles, as you just noted. So I will be happy to give you what I gave to him last and we can resume work on this. But staff and department heads work at the direction of the city manager.
Shines a little light on it.
And every department is short-staffed. Any other new business?
It was old.
Question?
Well, I guess items for discussion,
You have something, Andrea?
go ahead, Andrea, I can come after.
So under items of discussion, I have the City Hall roof replacement. I did provide council with the full response and engineer's recommendation on the bids that were received. So as many of you know, I know this has been talked about for the last several years. City Hall is in need of a roof. The roof on the building dates back to 1997, best our records can tell. So we did have the roof analyzed and we put it out to bid. We received 5 bids. You have received the full bid tabulation. But as you also know, we did not include any capital projects in the 2023 budget. So this project includes 2 alternates. Alternate 1 is to replace ventilators, and alternate number 2 is to replace this skylight. If you've ever been to a meeting on a rainy day, you'll always know that we have caution on the floor underneath the skylights, which is where we have some significant leaking. So it's staff's recommendation, as it is the recommendation of our engineers, to if you choose to go forward with this project, to award both alternates 1 and 2. The low bid in this case brings that to $396,200. So I wanted to make sure that council had all of this information, as well as the information about the roof being installed in 1997. At that time, it was installed by RSI Roofing. And also to let you know that due to the agreement that we have with the New York State court system, there is a portion of the project that the court could, presumably would, pay. It's a small portion of the overall project. Speaking in sort of rough numbers, if the project is $400,000, they, based on the formula in which they reimburse the city, it would be somewhere in the $43,000 range that they would pay. But if this is something that council is interested in pursuing, we would want to make sure to get it on your agenda for the 23rd. The 60-day period in which we requested for review and determination will expire on January 16th. So we can ask for an extension. I'm sure contractors will hold their bid for 2 more weeks. But if this is something council is interested in doing, then I also wanted to follow up with a discussion about how we might finance it this evening so that we could have that prepared for you for the 23rd. The project obviously would not start now, but the bid documents that we put out would have the roof completed by the end of September.
It's very necessary. I've been up there.
I'd be interested to hear about the financing aspect of it, Andrea.
And I believe we have an obligation to maintain the treasure that they put in it.
So in terms of the financing, there are, what we can do is look at bringing a resolution and looping this in with the ban that council has already authorized for ready. It would allow us, it would be the most efficient way to fund this project at this time, and it would reduce the costs associated with financing. We haven't executed that ban, so we still could likely fold this into that same ban. So we have 1 interest rate. The funding would be available for cash flow purposes, April, May timeframe likely. And Angela and I have talked a little bit about that, and we've talked with our bond counsel on that. So that would be our recommendation at this point in time. We also can reach out to USDA through their community facilities grant program to see if there could be funding available. Their programs are typically grant loan combinations, so it is not likely that we would be able to get, you don't get the grant without a loan component. And this is considered a maintenance project. It is a community facility though, so I do think it would qualify, but we would have to upfront those costs. So it wouldn't, we would still need to do some type of financing in advance.
What about Air Parks, Recreation, Historic Preservation grants for historic building.
Typically, maintenance is not an allowable or eligible expense. We did go through that process with the pump house, and that the roof was considered a maintenance item and was not eligible.
So why don't we plan on worst case scenario, we loop this in with the ready ban. And then meanwhile, we see what the USDA, if they would possibly offer something. That way it gives us choices. And if we do need to finance partial loan with the USDA, we can use that ready, correct?
Right. So if there's an interest in moving forward, I can sort that through between now and the 23rd and bring you options. But I just want to make sure that we word your resolution correctly. There's a bit of legwork to do, which I'm happy to do. And I think for what it's worth, it's a very necessary project. I just want to make sure that we are doing the right work for council based on council's appetite to do the project.
I'd much rather see us find grant funding, whatever that may be, in a concerted effort to do that.
Is there a
That's my
consensus?
preference.
Yes, to move
Yeah.
forward.
Andrea, a while back, I'd forwarded a historic grant application from the federal government related to registered historic dwellings. Is City Hall registered as a historic building?
I don't believe it is, although I can confirm that. The pump house is, and that is, we did look into that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Are you in consensus, Mike, to move forward with this as well?
Absolutely.
Counselor Fisher, the mayor is asking for your opinion.
How much of a bond are you talking with the other one? What's the total that's gonna be tagged on to people or councils for years to come? You know, you have the value of the total? If we
Yes.
bump it, if we do this with the Ready project and it's one bond, how much are we talking?
Well, we would be adding $396,200 to that at this point, based on the bids.
Okay, but and we just authorized another 1.4 million for the sheathing for the front of the docks. And now we're just gonna keep borrowing more money? I'm not in for it, no. No, find the money in a grant or something.
Well, that's what you said you would do. You would apply, we would add this to the ban, but in the meantime, you would be looking for grant
Fishing
funding.
for grants.
There will still be some type of
Right.
loan that would be attached to it. So you're still going to move forward and look for grants and funding.
Well, right. I think
Make sure I'm understanding this correctly.
I think the
I
best
am.
funding source for this, because it typically is considered a maintenance project, and that disqualifies it from a number of funding sources, is USDA Rural Development through their Community Facilities Program. So I will look at that. I'll make some phone calls first thing tomorrow morning, and then we can work on kind of getting the information to have in front of council to authorize the ban, which would be folded into the amount that the council's previously approved for the Ready project. So it would all close at one time, and we would only incur the administrative costs once.
Another thing I'd like to council and staff to consider the second bid, I believe it was RSI. They're local. They're many people, including myself, think they are the best in the area. The other, the low bidder was the distance he had when he has to come here and work on this roof in the future. Because you want, often it's stipulated, the same contractor has to work on it to keep the warranty going. It's gonna cost a lot more money.
I felt the same way, Mike, when I was looking at it. Yeah, RSI is good too. To entertain RSI.
Titan has done work for the city. They did work, they come highly recommended. They did work at our wastewater treatment facility as a sub.
Yeah, no, I sure they're good. I know what we have with RSI and then being closer, I just think. Consideration.
There would have to be something in the procurement policy that allows you to pick a local bidder. I haven't looked at our procurement policy. Otherwise, you're forced to take the low bidder.
We're required to take the lowest responsible bidder, and we don't have any indication that Titan is not a responsible bidder.
And that's fine.
And there's nothing in our procurement policy that allows for latitude if it's a local versus a non-local.
We didn't include that in this particular bid. That would, but I can look into that.
No, a lot of times procurement policies will state that though. That gives you the latitude to do that.
We've done it before, but obviously with different bids.
Certainly, that would get much more complicated if you did look at having any grant funds. The grant funds would require you to go with the lowest responsible bidder.
And, you know, I just didn't know what the us, you know, so. Two roofs, you know. So, yeah, we can just go with the low better now. Sure. Thank you.
Oh, I just didn't know, I saw on the update, there was the implications from the Christmas Eve-esque blizzard. I didn't know if there was, if you could elaborate a little bit on the damage to the municipal arena.
So at this point in time, we got kind of a back of the envelope estimate number from some contractors. Obviously, we're having work done in that area. We had personnel go look at it. The estimate that we provide, that is in your update, that we also provided to St. Lawrence County Emergency Services of $350,000 is based on the recent work that we did on the north side, but takes into account that we have significant damage to the south side is where we have water and electrical. So those are the more expensive docks, and that is where we had the most substantial damage. I was just speaking earlier this evening to the Director of Public Works. I mean, that is something that we're really going to have, whether without funding support, we're going to have to look into the damages and make sure that those docks are safe before we allow them to be rented this summer. Those docks that are damaged are not part of the Ready project that we're doing now. We are doing some repairs to the shoreline, but not to the docks themselves in that particular area. So that is an estimate. We don't really have a great in-depth detailed understanding of all the damage other than by the visual inspection that we've been able to complete. We'll really have to get in there and take a closer look at it this spring. Other than that, the costs that we provided by department are in accordance with the parameters that we were given by St. Lawrence County. That includes costs for equipment, so trucks, materials, including sand, and overtime directly associated with response. That is over and above normal operations. So that is what we have provided. We provided not just the number, but the backup to go along with that to the county. The state, I also had a conversation with the state today, Department of Homeland and Emergency Services. They are still processing the November snowstorm emergency, so they haven't even yet gotten to processing the December blizzard, but they have assured me that we are on track. So if there's anything that they do need, we're prepared to provide that and make sure that we are eligible for anything that we might be at this point in time.
Look at those docks. I didn't see a lot of issues. Things like that I'm not obviously standing there looking. Docks themselves seemed all in place except for on the end.
Yeah, there's definitely damage to the floats, damage to the electrical, damage to the water. The Tuesday following the holiday, when staff kind of came back, the first pictures we had, you can see they're really crumpled up. So
Folks, you'll see that some of them have shifted, like we just had at first glance, they don't look like they've damaged.
Right.
Right. Channel 7 wanted to talk about it, but I really didn't have enough.
Yes.
Too early.
Right, yeah, and it will continue to be too early until really spring and when we have some time to get out there and take a look at it, which we will have to do.
Once it's frozen, it might be a good opportunity where you get on the ice, look underneath, you know.
Yeah, we will monitor the situation. So if we find some condition that we think is, more ideal to investigate, we certainly will. We actually have a ready meeting tomorrow, so we'll kind of just discuss that a little bit more and how the ready improvements have any impact on the damages or not. But again, for the most part, the damages that we expect based on visual inspection alone are outside of the scope of work for the ready project. For better or for worse, I don't know whether, for better or for worse, but.
We've had a lot of conversation, but I think we are at citizen participation. Please come up to the podium and you have 2 minutes. Is there anyone remotely attending?
I do not see any hands raised.
I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss medical, financial, credit, or employment.
Second it.
Call the roll.
Mayor Skelly, Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers.
I'm sorry, I don't know what we're voting on. I could barely hear anything. I think, are we out of items for discussion?
It's a vote to go into executive session, sir.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
We do not anticipate action following the executive session, so I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Adjourned.